All right, let's start up. I'll call the meeting to order. First thing we do is pledge. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please sit, but I'll ask you for a moment of silence for two people. So in the last week or so, we lost both Flora Jones and also Lou Amoroso Sr., and I just want to spend a minute honoring them. So I'll do Flora first. Flora retired from New York City, where she was a social worker, moved to Beacon in more than 25 years ago, and was always this force to be reckoned with in terms of positive support, in terms of criticism sometimes, in terms of a smile and an amazing laugh. But we miss her. Her body is being transported to Alabama, where she was from originally. And then also Lou Amoroso Sr., he died on January 28th. Lou, in addition to his public service, he served on the city council for 3 terms. They were my first 3 terms, as well as one of Chris's. Chris is on for 1 term, Steve Gold on for 2, and I think obviously Clara Lou for all 3 of those. In addition to his public service to Beacon, Lou was a dedicated and committed volunteer in the city, including an active member of Maze Hook and Ladder for 50 years and one of the founders of Pop Warner Football League in Beacon. He's also a trade union representative. All of us who knew Lou recognized his love and his passion for Beacon. I just want to offer my deepest condolences to his family and his many longtime friends. So thank you. The next thing I want to do before we do any public comments is a community segment. And I've got 4 retirees that I'd like to honor, and I'm going to go up to the podium and read them and ask you to come up. Isn't this great?
It is.
Isn't it?
It's beautiful.
So my first one is Sergeant Christian Alan Castro. We're smiling because we have history, and it's really positive. But Christian has been with the City of Beacon Police Department since 2001 and served in the leadership position of sergeant since 2016. He received multiple specialized trainings, including as a passenger safety technician and in commercial vehicle enforcement. He provided computerized training to other officers and served as a certified field training officer, a bicycle officer, and a canine handler. And I have this certificate to provide to you, which is just the City of Beacon Certificate of Recognition presented to you, Sergeant Christian Alan Castro, in recognition and appreciation of more than 20 years of dedicated public service to the City of Beacon. And I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Right. All right, I got 3 more. They're in alpha order, so Andy Goodall. Let's see if I got this. Yep. So Andrew Goodall is a lifelong Beacon resident who has worked since 2006 for the city's wastewater treatment plant, which ensures that the water we release into the Hudson is clean and treated. Andy started his career in Beacon as a maintenance helper and then earned promotion to sludge control operator. In addition to his public service, Andy has also been an active volunteer, including as a coach for Pop Warner Football, Beacon Little League, and Beacon High School golf team. I just want to read this and say thank you. So this is also a certificate of recognition from the City of Beacon, presented to Andrew Goodall in recognition and appreciation of more than 15 years of dedicated public service to the City of Beacon. Thank you so much, Andy. All right, Mike Kilmer. There you go. I've got 3. I don't have 4. By the way, I'm missing 1. You take a look? Yeah. Oh, there's my 4th right there. Cool. I'll come back. Great. Cool. Thanks. All right. So Mike Helmer was a dedicated city employee in the highway department for 21 years. For nearly a decade, Mike has maintained all city-owned properties, including City Hall and Memorial Building, as well as the city parks. Mike was also a steady fixture during snow plowing season on the south side of the mountain, taking pride in his work and making the roadways clear and safe for residents to use during the winter months. So this is a City of Beacon Certificate of Recognition presented to Michael Kilmer in recognition and appreciation for more than 21 years of dedicated public service to the City of Beacon. Thank you, Mike. All right, and last but not least, the other Mike. How you doing, Mike? Good. So the last one is from Michael Merritt. Mike served as a volunteer firefighter before starting his paid career with the department in July 1995. Mike was instrumental in helping to transition a primarily volunteer department when he began into a paid professional department. Along with Fire Chief Van Voorhis and other senior department staff, Mike successfully advocated for the addition of paid lieutenants to each shift to establish clear command structure and improve training. Following the creation of the first two rotational lieutenant positions, Mike was promoted to become one of the first paid lieutenants in our long history. So I just want to read this, which is another certificate of Beacon, City of Beacon Certificate of Recognition presented to Michael Merritt in recognition and appreciation for more than 27 years of dedicated public service to the City of Beacon. Thank you, Mike. Thank you. All right, there we go. All right, let's take a minute. Oh, I will do that, thank you.
We didn't do that last week.
So while we're waiting for the room to clear out, I'll do a quick roll call. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 smiling, well, no, they're not smiling faces. I see 7 faces that might be smiling. Someday we'll find out. I see the city administrator, and I believe we have a city attorney on the phone somewhere on Zoom.
And I'm smiling.
Good. All right. So that's roll call. And again, we'll give it a minute. Okay, so they're clearing out. So the next item is public comment. And as you all know, we have a split meeting, which means we have both an in-person and a hybrid or a Zoom portion. And we'll do any comments from the in-person audience first. You all know the routine, which is 3 minutes. I do ask that your comments be talking about policies and not about persons, and that way we can continue to be respectful to one another. And who's up first is Tina Bernstein.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
The City Council workshop meeting last week was clearly an attempt by our mayor and our city attorney.
Keep your comments to issues and not individuals.
I'm going to deal with issues. I would like to continue. To once again discourage discussion, taint the public's understanding of good cause eviction legislation, and obstruct your attempt as City Council members to clearly interpret and apply the law and act on behalf of those most in need in our community. Keene & Bean is a law firm who represents a significant number of clients who are developers and landlords. Our mayor is also a landlord. Our mayor tried to discredit the report by Judith Goldner of Legal Aid Society as only one of prejudicial advocacy, and the legal opinion of Keene & Bean was presented as the truth. Our mayor boasted about his letter to the governor and advocacy for more programs like Section 8, but does our government seem inclined to plan public housing or provide more funds at any time in the near future while the threat of housing insecurity is current and predatory practices intimidation, and unrealistic rent increases are a regular occurrence in Beacon. Our comprehensive plan has as one of its missions to prioritize a diverse community and housing affordability, and yet predatory and speculative practices are making it almost unaffordable, impossibly unaffordable, for first-time would-be homeowners and who have modest means, and it's driving working people out of Beacon. Finally, the real estate lobby is powerful. There will be threats of lawsuits, but every fight for civil and human rights has been met with fierce opposition by those in power with money. Our ability to hold fast to the principle that housing is a human right and that our responsibility as a city is to do what we can to maintain a stable and inclusive community is key. What we do locally will strengthen the fight for what can happen on a statewide level. So I urge you to insist in this law, exclusions only apply to owner-occupied premises with less than 4 units. A right to automatic lease renewal unless there is good cause. A cap at rent increases of no more than 5% unless there have been capital improvements. I also believe the price of sale of a building or significant market changes should not be a reason to raise rent above 5%. That's what's driven people out of here. I suspect there'll be another attempt to try to delay voting on this. Please don't let it happen. I urge you, don't let this vote be delayed.
Thank you. I'll remind everyone again that you are fully capable of making comments that are on issues and not on individuals. And I would encourage you to do that as a way to remain respectful to all of the people here who care a lot about Beacon and have opinions to raise. Next one is Arthur Kamens.
Good evening, everyone. You know that Scales of Justice image with the blindfolded Lady of Justice? Well, with respect to housing, there is no blind justice. On one side is the right to a home. On the other is the unfettered right to private profit. There is no avoiding the inevitable trade-off. Right now, the weight of practice, if not the law, is on the side of profit. Last time I looked, 50% of folks in Beacon were renters, and 50% of Beacon tenants and homeowners were cost burden. Good cause eviction legislation is a step to mediate that, but resistance based on principle or legal analysis aims to keep it that way. Hyperbole? I don't think so. Think about some of the objections so far. Some appear to be incensed that a tenant would have the same unrestricted rights to remain in their home for the long haul, just like a homeowner, even when landlords, excuse me, retain the right to cut off tenants or raise rent with good cause. Why should anyone need to live in periodic insecurity just because they can't afford to take on a 30-year mortgage? What's the moral, or should I say amoral value, other than I own property and I should be able to do whatever I want regardless of who it harms? I urge you to reject that as a matter of principle and put your weight on the housing justice scale on the side of tenants' rights. Next up is the idea that we are trying to usurp the New York state law. In fact, the claim has been offered that legal analysis, that legal analysis is the only unbiased one. Why is the contrary legal analysis of legal aid any more biased because they represent tenants in court than that of Keenan Bean, who represent realtors and developers? It's on their website. So here, go with your values. Then we're threatened with a costly lawsuit. It's too risky. I suspect that is what's behind the Council of Mayors position. You all know the history. Virtually every struggle for human rights has been met with the threat of legal action. In each case, resistors to the expansion of rights had wealth and power on their side. Housing justice is no exception. Rights have been expanded and become more inclusive because some folks took a risk and had the courage to push back. That's the side I hope you're on. Finally, I urge you to delete market changes and sale price considerations in the current Beacon draft to be replaced, like in the state law, with a consumer price index consideration. That will
15
take care of
seconds.
inflationary pressures on landlord costs without providing a separate backdoor to evade tenant protection intent of the law. If buying a building for a grossly inflated price prevents landlords from offering reasonable rents, we have no obligation to enable it. I urge you to act without delay. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Dennis Pavlik.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. If I can just have the council's undivided attention, if you can just give me a few minutes on your but not to be on your laptop or doing anything, give me your undivided attention, please. Thank you.
Could you speak up into the mic, Dennis?
Yeah, okay. I
Thank
just
you.
wanted the council to give me their undivided attention, not be on their laptop or doing anything. I want you to listen to my comments. Thank you. I have my first comment is about the 9/11 Patriot Park. I disagree with where the event is being held now into a private entity. If the Patriot Park is so dangerous, that's why it was moved on the corner of Matty 1 and where it's at now. And there wasn't the event there last year. 9/11 happened to everybody, if you lost somebody or not. It affected everybody. And another thing that gets me about the 9/11 event is the public used to be able to speak if they wanted to say something. They can't do that no more. You gotta be on the agenda. You gotta be on an agenda. I believe that's wrong. As wrong as the day is long. We need to go back to that. My second comment is about the future of hopefully we can have the St. Patrick's Day Parade this year on Main Street in Beacon. They have the Dutchess County got authorized and approved coming through the village of Wappingers the first Saturday in March. They're having their parade. We like to have our parade. I think the people in Beacon have put up with this long enough. They need to get out and extend themselves and be out there and celebrating. Whatever they're celebrating, going to be celebrating. I'm sure it's going to be more than St. Patrick's Day. But they need to get out and let their hair down, so to speak. And another suggestion I had, if you can, I know the school board did it, if you can think about adding a 4th minute to public comments. A 4th minute, adding a 4th minute. The school board did it about a year or two ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron Ashoka.
Good evening. My name is Erin Ashoka. I'm a resident of Ward 2, and I'm here to address the council tonight on the topic of good cause eviction. At last week's meeting, there was a clear effort to discredit the legal opinions of well-respected attorneys at Legal Aid. The mayor has made it seem that our city attorneys from Keene and Bean are an objective voice, while Legal Aid is somehow not. If we're using the argument that Legal Aid is not objective based on the fact that attorneys there have dedicated their careers to an organization that is, quote, built on one simple but powerful belief that no one person should be denied their right to equal justice, then it is clear that Keene and Bean are also not objective. Our city attorney's bio on their website states, Nicholas Ward Willis represents businesses, developers, individuals, property managers, all before mentioning their work as representatives of public bodies. This shows that we should not be privileging one legal opinion over another when we consider this law. Furthermore, the fact that the city attorneys have issued these opinions and so adamantly have stated they don't believe the council has the ability to enforce this law is a disservice to our community, as they now will require this city council to seek outside legal representation if there is a suit against this law. However, while we debate whose legal opinion is most valid in this case, members of our Beacon community are under threat of eviction. The 2019 Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act is not enough to ensure that members of our community are not unjustly evicted. The state is not moving fast enough to put much-needed protections in place, but other cities have. The threat of litigation is always how powerful interests try to prevent policies that protect the less powerful. I hope you'll consider who you want to be known to represent: the real estate lobby and those spreading misinformation about this law, or the most marginalized members of your community. Those of you on the council who believe housing is a human right and who are committed in both words and actions to address housing affordability in Beacon, I urge you to set a public hearing tonight so that we can vote on this law and pass good cause eviction to protect tenants here in Beacon. Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa Kraft.
Good evening. I applaud the dedication and hard work of Beacon's retirees recognized tonight, and offer kudos to those being appointed positions later in tonight's meeting. Take lessons from those before, because there is real value there. I believe Beacon should side on the air of caution and vote yes to amend Chapter 173 and fine-tune the laws already in our city books, and not bring in a new law under the guise of the good cause eviction law being touted throughout the state. This would be like bringing dynamite into our city coffers. And like most constituents, I would rather see this municipality take its legal advice from our paid attorneys and NICOM's lawyers than take suggestions from one-sided advocates and the newcomers seated since January. Let's start with enforcement. Plus, we have one common denominator: the lack of enforcement, be it traffic and safety laws or existing city laws and codes. We can't have a walking city if it's unsafe to cross the street. Daily, residents witness speeding and parking infractions in every part of Beacon, unregistered short-term rentals in our neighborhoods, and the worst offenders are massive new construction encroachments in our small city. Whether they are major apartment or office complex, or the planned overfill of ADUs coming to a quiet residential neighborhood near you. The planned zoning revisions will forever change our historic districts, view sheds, and ultimately the face of this community. Let's stop destroying our heritage. This city should put this much discussion and energy into saving what we can and build that bridge.
Thank you. Is it Shante Tenoso?
Am I supposed to say my name? I've never done this before.
Yeah.
Oh, Shante Tenoso, and I don't know what ward I'm in.
And the
Anyways.
street you live on is fine, too.
So, I was invited here. I didn't prepare a speech or anything like that, and I hear people talking about big developers and rich people in association with the good cause eviction, Chapter 173 code, and I'm here to say, yeah, I'm not a big developer. I don't have a lot of money, and I'm homeless. I have a house with 4 apartments, I have a house with 4 apartments in it, and because I have one bad tenant, which is almost impossible to evict, I'm homeless. So this would just ruin me. I don't have a lot of money, and I bought a house with 4 apartments in it in hopes to have something for the future, but this would ruin me. I can't afford a lawyer. I don't even know why I'm crying, I'm sorry. This, I'm just saying, for people like me who are just trying to get ahead, who, I bartend, I trying to run an ice cream company, this would just absolutely ruin me. I would not be able to evict bad tenants, which I have now, and I don't increase my rents like crazy. I actually used to rent in the house that I now own. The people that are my tenants were my neighbors, and yeah, this would just be a nail in the coffin for someone like me. And there's a lot of people like me in Beacon who, we're not big developers. We're not, we don't own the roundhouse or anything like that. We're just trying to get ahead. And yeah, again, this would just be a nail in the coffin. I would probably have to sell my house to a big developer because, yeah, that's what I would have to do. So you're trying to prevent something, but it would cause more damage. There's already the emergency rental assistance program in the state, which allows people to stay in their house for a whole year after they pay the rent, which is positively ridiculous for someone like me. Yeah, I have a mortgage. People like me have a mortgage. We have to pay our mortgage. We have to keep a roof, for the people in it. And I don't do anything illegal, and I would never evict somebody for just no reason. You know, the tenants I have now, they haven't paid rent in a year, which is why I'm homeless, technically. And they have verbally assaulted everyone in the building, and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm going through the steps, but they could still be there for 6 months to a year. You know, and that's with the things we have now in place. And so this, I'm just saying, it'd be a nail in the coffin. Like, if this passes, I don't know.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the building that would like to speak? This would be the time. Sure.
I think it's relevant to follow that, actually.
And just state your name.
My name is Brett Miller, I'm Ward 3.
Thank you.
Okay, so just looking at Chapter 173, 16, subsection A1, I hope the city attorney's on the line so you can be looking over this, because I'm going to get a little bit technical looking through the language here. Roman numeral I, the rate of increase relative to the tenant's ability to afford said increase. Is it the intent to charge the landlord or their agent with the responsibility to determine the affordability for each client or each tenant? If so, small landlords don't have the same tenant vetting systems as Wall Street landlords. Might we provide guidance at no more than 30% of their living wage? If the landlord and tenant risk beyond this guidance, whose responsibility is it? If the tenant misrepresents their finances, is this factor still considered? If affordability is the tenant's responsibility, whereas if they're willingly living beyond their means, is this factor still considered, or are they at the risk of losing their tenant protections? 2, improvements made to the subject unit or common areas. I'd add such improvements equal to the depreciated value for the same period of time, and add repairs, because whereas improvements increase value, repairs bring the unit or building back into good working condition. On section 4, significant market changes. Do we mean the real estate market? As this is defined, there's a chance that the value, how do we define the change in value? Is it using sales comparison approach or income-based approach? We need to define this, or else it could be misconstrued and used against the tenant. Trying to go fast here because I have 8 comments in only 3 minutes. The Consumer Price Index, is that for the entire United States, the Northeast region, or the Newark, Jersey City region? Because there's a difference there, 5.9 and 4.4. So we should define that a little bit further. The frequency that the landlord increases rent for the tenant, I think we should also consider annual increases to be a standard so that people can plan an annual budget on both sides. VII is at 8, the amount of previous rent increases. Wouldn't it be fair that this should also consider the balance of the increases and the reductions over the period of the tenancy? Say you drop your rent because you're helping a tenant out. Later you want to increase it. So that should be considered. Building sale price, 9. Does this mean what the building sold for most recently, a broker's opinion of value, or their appraised value? The value of the building.
15 seconds.
The value of the building in the short term will be negatively impacted by the rent control. And that's going to impact the small landlord, whereas the Wall Street landlord could stomach this over the period of time and get a capital appreciation later. Percentage exceeding 5%, that should probably say inflation adjusted. Remember, we had 7% inflation in January, and we have a $1.2 trillion spending bill with the money meant to come in March. So basically, in conclusion, we might consider the difference between a Wall Street landlord and a single member LLC passing through income so that we don't put people unnecessarily out on the street and cause an issue where we're creating inequality. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you email the council those comments as well?
Yes, sir.
Because there was a lot of detail and it went fast.
Will do.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. I watched the workshop last week. I watched the city attorney advise this council not to pass the good cause eviction law, and that's now a matter of public record. So if the city passes the law and as a result gets hit with a $100,000 lawsuit, who are you expecting to pay for it? Are you going to try to pass a special assessment? And how popular do you think that's going to be? Headline: City Council screws up and wants taxpayers to bail it out. I'm something called a yellow dog Democrat. Are you familiar with that term? Probably not. It means that if there's a Republican on the ballot and a yellow dog, I'll vote for the yellow dog. I've donated to Democratic causes ever since John Fitzgerald Kennedy. I am very seriously considering giving up my membership in the Democratic Party and becoming an independent because the proponents of this law do not represent me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds like personnel ain't the only thing you should have took to executive session. But my name is Ruben Simmons, City of Beacon Highway Department. First, I just want to say I accept the subliminal message from the last council meeting. I accept the challenge. Second, I think I'm being misunderstood. I do not want what's going on with me in certain situations discussed or arguments or anything, debates made public. What I'm saying is the process should be open for public observation. That's it. If somebody's funding or paying for the production of a show, I feel they should have the right to watch it go on. Third, transparency is all I ask for. The Sunshine Act of 1976, the Freedom of Information Law, I said I put one in. You guys have a process. You guys have the form on your website. I download the form. If it's being rejected, I'm fine with that. But I would just like the form back and signed by it so I know who's denying it. You have the original. I'll leave a copy. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public side? Okay. We've got a little time
You
to do
have
some.
two online, Mayor.
Okay, so let's go online.
If you're on Zoom and you'd like to make a comment, please use the raised hand option at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're on a phone, you can press *9. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll have to join the Zoom by visiting beaconny.gov. Mayor, we have 4 hands raised at the moment. 3 hands raised.
3. Okay.
The first speaker from Zoom will be Michael Eaton.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, my name is Michael Eaton, Tolman Road, Rock Tavern. I'm here to support passing the good cause eviction policy. Tenants are in desperate need of more security in their living spaces. They should not have to worry that a significant raise to the cost of their rent could suddenly displace them. This policy will put reasonable limits on raising the cost of rent, which will offer more stability to renters and overall create more stable communities. Good cause eviction will also protect tenants in their right to request that a landlord take care of their basic obligations as a property owner. This bill will not hurt good, reasonable landlords who take care of their tenants. It will only prevent an unjust amount of power and control over a tenant's housing security and provide more basic rights to renters. I urge you to pass good cause eviction to create a more reasonable and just relationship between landlords and their tenants. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our second Zoom caller is Scott Lerman.
Hi, I wasn't expecting to speak tonight, but I have to say that I'm really disturbed. It really bothers me that instead of Beacon addressing such a critical community issue in a way that puts together the thinking of everyone who would have knowledge and is involved in it, we have a draft law that didn't come out of discussion but was put together based on other laws that some communities have tried to pass or may pass. It's driving a wedge between people that actually could think this out and reach a conclusion, I think, that would help the people we want to help. We have just a minute ago someone saying this won't hurt good landlords, implying that bad landlords are the only ones who would have any concerns. We have people saying that the mayor and the lawyers are representing corporate interests. And we have people characterizing legal aid, which is an amazing and important group, as not being objective. Well, the truth is, we all have perspectives that need to be considered. When we went to move around noise, which isn't nearly as important an issue, or traffic, we tried to bring together community members who have diverse points of view and figure out what might work. And I have to say that when someone like Arthur gets up and says, hey, maybe we should make rent increases in this bill based on a multiple of the consumer price index rather than some arbitrary number, what he's doing is he's thinking about who's involved and what might work, not just for tenants, but for landlords. We just need more of that. And it really puts me into despair that a rush to do this. And by the way, threat of lawsuit, I agree. There's been threats of lawsuits for all sorts of good things, but there's going to be a lawsuit. We're going to have to spend huge amounts of money defending ourselves against it. And I think this bill has been rushed and is really going to be challenged on a number of factors. Instead of that, can't we put together a city group that can figure out what will help the people who need to be helped? How do we not hurt those who are vulnerable? And how do we not, in the rush to do this, I really have sympathy for the woman who got up. She's not the only one. Landlords who are individuals in this city who are terrified of what this will do. Don't tell us that only bad landlords would worry about this. So let's find a way to take a minute and not call the meeting, pass this law as it is, wait for it to be challenged, spend the money, have it overturned, and find out it didn't do what we want to. Again, I want us to work together. I think there are good intentioned people who have different roles in there being a vital and productive set of rentals in this city.
15 seconds.
And that includes the city administrator and the building department, who, by the way, have to enforce this. And they don't even have the resources to enforce what we have. Let's look at all of that, figure out what we need to do, and come up with alternatives that we can agree with and put all of our efforts behind it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, there are 2 more digital speakers now. I think we're about at 30 minutes. Did you want to continue?
Yeah, let's finish those 2. Thank you.
The next remote speaker is Martin.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Good, thanks. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Martin Fowler, a resident of Ward 2 in Beacon. First, I want to speak particularly for those who are at great risk of losing their homes, especially now that the statewide eviction moratorium has lapsed. I'm greatly encouraged that the Council continues to consider the important good cause eviction legislation, and I trust the upcoming public hearing will bring many stories to light of Beaconites who are at risk, whether that's of losing their homes or having trouble keeping up with the incredible pace of rising prices here in Beacon, and maybe struggling to remain a member of this community. That notwithstanding, I do agree a greater deal of enforcement for the laws existing and support for the building inspector would be in order as well. I urge you all to continue considering the actual persons at the other end of the legislation, first and foremost. After all, a house is first a home in which people live. Second, I wanted to address an incident that occurred this week on the streets of Beacon. A man walking in the middle of the street, clearly not right of mind, whether it was from some sort of mental health distress or from some kind of substance abuse, encountered police at the intersection of Main and Teller during the day. An officer attempted to remove the man from the street, but the man was not interested in talking to him. Next, several other officers arrived on the scene in several cars. The first officer of those then slammed the man to the ground in order to arrest him. Notably, our one social worker, who was regularly on duty during the weekdays, was in a meeting in Poughkeepsie on this day. So there was no care worker present on the response team who might have been able to focus on de-escalation in an approach to the situation. Instead, he was met with the status quo of violence. I hope the city will reconsider a violence-first policy that does not include a full response coverage for those in mental health distress. I hope they do so by expanding our social worker response team. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Our final remote speaker is Colin, user 3.
Hello?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, this is Carol with Artist Collective. I want to give my email address. A lot of people were trying to reach us. It's artistcollective@yahoo.com. You are all welcome to email me. On good cause eviction, set the public hearing date, vote date. Do not drag this on. This has been going on since August. We're up to over 7 months now. It's unacceptable. There are no more excuses. This needs to get done. As for the mayor's comments, I want to remind people that the New York State Charter and the New York State Charter prohibits the mayor, the city administrator, I'm talking about the New York State Charter, prohibits the mayor and the city administrator and the city attorney to sit in on these city council meetings. They're not allowed to control it. They're not allowed to set the tone. They're not allowed to interfere. These meetings are city council. City council meetings are independent from the mayor. Anybody can make a comment of any kind. Do not censor people how they speak. They have the right to speak. The mayor doesn't want anybody to be critical of him. We guarantee you this mayor's not going to finish his term. Trust us
Okay,
on
I'm going
that.
to cut you off in about 2 seconds.
There are multiple investigations
All right.
going on. So
Please
good
cut
cause
this
eviction,
off.
Then cut her off,
good
please.
cause-
Enough.
Okay, so I think we're done with public comments.
Sorry,
And again,
can you-
I will ask everyone to be respectful, and that's the only way we can do this, all right? So-
Can you clarify the grounds that you cut her off on?
Yeah, as I said at the beginning, that the way we can be respectful to one another is we talk about issues and not about individuals. And there was a repeated reference to an individual. I'm sorry it's about me, but you know, I think anyone running this meeting would say, we need to talk about issues and not individuals. And I think it's very easy to do. Most of the speakers were quite capable of doing so. And I think that's where we need to stick. Okay? Okay. I think reports. Where do we want to start? Dan, you want to start up? We'll go around the room this way.
Thanks. So first, I just want to start off by announcing that I'm going to try and start office hours again, starting March 12th, Saturday, March 12th, from noon to 2 p.m. I'll be holding office hours at Trax at 1 East Main, Trax Coffee House, which is where I was doing it before COVID started. I'll just say now in advance, I have no idea what will be happening with COVID in a month from now, so this is tentative. I'll update the Facebook invite for this with the COVID restrictions that are applicable for March 12th, and of course, if COVID cases rise, I'll cancel the office hours. But I'm having this because I really want to hear from folks in a personal setting, but not necessarily in a city council meeting, and I just want to hear from you about the issues that are important to you in a setting where it's not recorded and broadcast on television. Next, I would like to share another event that's coming. It's nice we're sharing events again. Maybe we'll get there. So on Saturday, February 19th, from 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. is a new annual celebration called the Celebration of Light. It's an evening parade, very similar to those that are done in Europe, where folks in mid to late February, early March are celebrating the transition to spring, helping see out the darkness of winter and to focus on rejuvenation and growth. Leading up to that event, there will be everybody will be carrying lanterns in that parade. So the week before, Sunday, February 13th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., there will be a lantern making workshop, so everybody can attend to that. I also, lastly, just want to say that I did also see the video of the interaction between the police and the man that was suffering in some way, I don't know, and I understand that there will be a use of force report. The video was rather jarring to me. I am under the impression, I'm told that the experience that man had is consistent with the training that the police receive, which would be a problem for me as well. But I'm going to wait and hear hopefully City Council will have access to that use of force report, and we'll know exactly what happened and how it comports with our policies, procedures, and current training. But after somebody is completely apprehended, I don't think that their face should be stuck against the cold pavement. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. First of all, I just want to thank everyone in Ward 3 who has reached out and been in touch with me about many concerns and issues. I guess keep them coming. It looks like I'm kind of unofficially having office hours on Wednesdays between 9 and 1. Most of those have been phone meetings and Zoom meetings, but if you're free during that time, or if you're not, you know how to reach me. And I can be available other times too, but those are the hours that have been sort of back to back for the past couple of weeks. Next, I just want to tell you why I'm wearing orange today. This is in recognition of February as Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. And I just want to shout out that we're so lucky to live in a city where there are many educators doing great work to help our kids to know their worth. And for raising awareness about domestic abuse, teen dating violence, how to and not to use social media. The first step is to talk about it, and we have people doing that here, talking about what love is, talking about what friendship is. My kids and I are working on a what love is list at home, and in doing so, it's how I'm protecting them. But I can't do it alone, and so I'm grateful to all the educators out there. That's all for me.
Hello. I want to start by, if I may, addressing one of the speakers. Unfortunately, good cause eviction legislation does not change the process for evicting tenants who have been abusive or causing a nuisance. Cases like this would still move through the same legal eviction proceedings. It addresses rent increases and lease renewals that are not associated with a good cause. It sounds like you may be in need of legal aid, almost definitely in need of legal aid, and it sounds like you might qualify for free assistance through Legal Services of the Hudson Valley, and I really encourage you to reach out to them. Their number is 1-877-574-8529, or it's just Legal Services of the Hudson Valley. The City of Beacon recently signed a contract with them. They still have, it doesn't change their qualifications for who receives free assistance, but the City of Beacon does have a particular arrangement with them, and I hope they're able to help you. I do also want to say that good cause eviction is actually quite old legislation, and I do not think that this process has been rushed. I absolutely would like to continue talking about it and really appreciated some of the really specific feedback on particular points within the law. And I'm looking forward to moving forward on a public hearing to be able to continue that conversation. I also want to address the idea that somebody raised about this idea has a lot of different names, but collective legislating. I agree that I think I campaigned, in fact, on the idea of wanting to make government more participatory and more accessible. And the current system we have is not set up for that, but I do want to move forward in changing that. And so I hope that we can find ways together to do that. I the reason that I love Beacon so much is because they're some of the smartest and most creative people I've ever met here. And I do want to make sure we're bringing people into the process. I love the number of different ideas that have come out about housing, but I do believe that good cause eviction does not preclude most of those ideas, and want to move forward with good cause eviction and things like increasing housing stock and any number of other great ideas folks have shared so far. Lastly, I want to add that I am also looking forward to reviewing the police use of force report at the incident that happened earlier this week. I can appreciate that what happened may have been in line with training, but I do hope that we are going to be able to, as a city, move forward with some of the resolutions and recommendations that we set forth 2 years ago about the kind of community safety that we want to see in our community. And that does include mental health services, that does include having the social worker that we've hired available to respond to these kinds of incidents, and that does include looking at, I guess, new ideas for how to keep our community safe. I do think that housing is one of those, but that is a full discussion that I won't monologue here about any further. One more PSA is that I believe Mutual Aid Beacon has been able to obtain a number of free rapid at-home tests. And if anybody is in need of those, wasn't able to get enough at any of the other distributions that have happened, their sort of dispatch number is 845-288-2559. And that's a good place to start to get in touch with any of the resources that they have. Which reminds me of one more thing, sorry. They have been running a Wednesday morning grocery distribution throughout the pandemic for years at this point, and are going to, due to funding on the federal level, have to cut back that distribution to about once a month. And I'd like to see if there's a way for the city to continue to support that work. I believe they're working on a proposal for us to bring to us, so this isn't just a completely open conversation. But having volunteered every Wednesday on that distribution for a long time now, I know it's very needed, and I want to make sure that we're continuing to support the basic needs of our community. Thank you.
George?
Good evening. Appreciate everyone who's spoken this evening, both in person as well as on Zoom. You know, we need to always listen to those that we disagree with. This evening, the mayor wished his condolences for the Amoroso family of Lou Amoroso, and Lou used to sit right there almost every meeting for many, many years. He and I disagreed on so much, but I had the utmost respect for him, and I kind of wish I had told him that before he died. And so I just want us all to remember that whether we disagree or not, we all have the same goals, and we all want to make Beacon a better place. That said, as we hopefully begin to enter the twilight of this pandemic, I'd like everyone to remember that you know, our stores and our businesses on Main Street are all still suffering, and it's a rough winter. They are operating without government assistance at this point. Everyone's trying to keep their doors open. They're trying to keep employed literally thousands of members of our community every day. So please, when you have a few dollars to spend it on Main Street, not necessarily on Amazon or the most convenient thing, but Main Street is the heart of our city, and I hope we always take that into consideration, and to spend your money locally when you can. And that's it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Justice McRae, Ward 2.
I want to start off by talking about community safety and mental health. As a couple other council members have already mentioned, and as well as a person from the public, there was an incident this past week involving the police and use of force. And the city does have a mental health worker on hire, but they weren't available that day. And I saw a video of what had happened. I saw a video of the incident, and for me, it was traumatizing to see that. And I understand that the police were responding the way that they were told to, and that they were using the tools that they had in their toolkit. But I also watched a black man get swiped, kicked to the ground, and that's not something I want to see happen in the city that I live in. And I want to see us figure out solutions for ways to respond to incidents of whether it's a lack of safety or a lack of order, that we're doing our best to respond in a lack of care, or we're doing our best to respond in care, but not only figuring out ways to create responses that are based in care, but also create solutions that are create solutions based in prevention. That being said, I'm really glad that when this incident happened, that the person wasn't shot or tased. But if that's what I have to be glad about, then the bar is low. I don't want to see violence inflicted on any of the people here in our community, and I recognize that our social worker says his load is manageable, and I haven't had a chance to speak to the city social worker yet, but maybe whatever load that Beacon has isn't being fully met, and I'm really forced to wonder how this situation could have played out differently if our city social worker was there. And I think this situation shows that we don't just need to have a social worker 40 hours a week or what have you. I think there needs to be one 24/7 on staff. I think that we need to always have somebody that can be there in the city to respond to incidents and be the first line of response, or some sort of first line of response that is based in care. And that is what I'll say about that for now. Another big thing that I've been noticing over the past month or so is, and especially with people around my age, younger and older, is scams and falling for scams, whether specifically on social media. But there are a lot of call scams and email scams, and I'm sure we've all gotten the "your car warranty has expired" call, or the email for a free Walmart gift card with a link that is super sketchy. But one of the things that I've noticed, and you might have noticed as well, is that like on platforms such as Instagram and Facebook and whatnot, sometimes people who you follow, your friends, whatever, their feeds will change. And I've noticed that they'll change drastically, and with a particular focus on money giveaways or cryptocurrency. And I'm not giving my opinion on cryptocurrency, but I do want to note that that is one of the bigger scams right now. So if you have a friend that doesn't normally talk to you about cryptocurrency and is suddenly trying to get you onto that, or is sending you unfamiliar links or asking you for personal information, whether it be your Cash App, phone number, email, what have you, check in with them on a different platform before actually giving that information, and don't click on any links that you're unfamiliar with, because people's accounts are being hacked, and then they're using those hacked accounts to message other people they may know. So please just be wary of that. Another thing is that some of the new council members had the opportunity to visit the water treatment facility last week. And I definitely want to say that that was a wonderful tour. And it's really refreshing to know that Beacon does an excellent job to do what it can to keep the city's water clean. If you ever have the opportunity to, I don't know how available a tour would be to the public, but if you ever have the opportunity to go through that, I definitely suggest you do. But I just want to give a special shout out and thanks to our water department for doing such an excellent job at keeping the water that we get in our homes clean and for getting water to us. I also want to reiterate something that was mentioned last week, which is to try to keep your houses warm, especially if you're leaving on vacation during the winter. The water department's already had to deal with some frozen houses, and that is one of the last, having a frozen house, having pipes burst is one of the last things that anybody wants to deal with, and is a total nightmare. So if you can, do what you can to keep your houses warm or at the temperature that you would like them to be, whether you're in them or not. I do also want to mention that I know that either last year or the year before, the city adopted a diversity and equity policy. And as we have new people retiring, or a lot of people retiring and people changing positions, I know there are going to be some open positions in the city, and I would really love to see how the diversity policy plays out in hiring and how we continue to build a more equitable and diverse city workforce as we continue to hire more people. And I would love to see us build a city workforce that reflects the people in this community. And that being said, I was wondering if it was possible when the departments during budget season come to give their presentations, if they're hiring new people throughout, if a part of their presentation could be them talking about the ways that they did try to make their departments more inclusive, more diverse, and more equitable all around, whether it just be in the hiring process or in the work that they're doing in the community as well. Lastly, I had some personal issues with cell phone and contact last week, but if you do need to contact me and you can't reach me by cell phone for whatever reason, you could always call the city council number 845-838-5010, and I'll repeat that again, but it's also on the city's website. It's 845-838-5010, or you can email me at jmccray, JMCCRAY, @beaconny.gov. And I will get back to you as soon as possible, and I'd be happy to set up a Zoom call or a phone call or an appointment or what have you. And yeah, I'm happy to sit down and meet up with anyone who needs to talk. And that is all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice. I would also like to echo comments that have been made, thanking everyone who came out and made a public comment here, in particular to the potential sources that Paloma already mentioned about legal services of Hudson Valley. I saw on our very own website that Hudson River Housing also has some funding available, and that funding is for renters, homeowners, and landlords as well. So again, it's on our website, more information if it's something you are struggling right now and want to look into and see if there might be programs you weren't already aware of that might be of benefit to you. In addition to the people who are speaking out here at our council meetings and have continued to, I also wanted to acknowledge those who are coming to our other committee meetings, particularly our traffic safety committee meeting. We've had a number of residents who have reached out and really leaned into what happened tragically at the intersection of Main and Teller, and are coming forward to talking about some solutions there. And I was pleased to see that we're starting to talk about it, we're continuing to talk about it, and hopefully be something that we can bring publicly to it. Related to that, there's also been comments related to that committee and generally about how we communicate. Paloma brought it up, how we can get people to participate. Members of the public have brought it up as well. And actually at our next workshop, we're going to talk about what already happens with communications. We asked for it to be on the agenda. So if you have particular thoughts of things you're thinking about or questions you have or frustrations or challenges, this week would actually be a great week in particular to share those with us. I appreciate our workshop is not open to public comment, but we hope to take into account stuff. And that will be the first of many discussions as well. Yeah, and lastly, I am also interested in the use of force report about that incident that happened. And also, I do believe that from what I've learned about our police department, I look forward to learning, is they are actually really interested in leaning into and building on what we have here in Beacon. And so I don't know if the training that they give is one that has to be the same for everywhere across the state. And so I'm really curious to hear their ideas about how the use of force is played out in Beacon and what suggestions they have that be within keeping of their training. Again, it's an area I don't know about, so I'm not going to speak out of turn and say things have to be a certain way, as no one else here has as well. And so I'm really curious to hear from the police department what their thoughts are And maybe this is something where we can be a beacon for other communities to see how we can continue to keep all of us safe in our community.
I'll be very quick. I just want to say thank you for everyone for your comments. I think it's really important to hear all these viewpoints, and I appreciate the council's investment and the time for your comments. And that's all I've got. So, Chris?
This evening, we were supposed to have Central Hudson representatives come and speak about the billing problems that have been occurring throughout the valley. Due to the storm and the effort to recover power over the weekend, we had to delay that to February 22nd. So we are going to have 3 or 4 representatives come in and just talk about what happened when they implemented a new billing system in September. A lot of people locally are blaming the issues with the billing on our community choice aggregation for renewable energy. That is not related to the billing issue. Secondly, I would just say I am concerned to hear people making judgments about something that you have not investigated and you know very little about. The incident that several of you have talked about, our police were measured, they were professional, and they were proficient. And I will tell you this, I am glad to have the chief come in, but it would be nice before people start to make judgments about that to understand that that person was on PCP. We got a police call because they were lying in the middle of Teller Avenue. Or Henry Avenue. They then moved to Teller where they were walking into traffic, into cars that were coming on. Now, some people have seen a video, but you haven't seen the video that happened before that. You didn't see it from 3 angles, which I did. And I will tell you this, I stand by what our police did the other night, and I think they probably saved that guy's life. He's up in jail. Our social worker is following up with him, but to begin to judge things that you have not researched and have not talked to the police about is not a way I would suggest you go. Again, when the second officer came, that individual had already grabbed the arms of the first officer. If you see the other camera angles, he actually backed our officer up, threw a coat at him, and was slapping him. So by the time that second officer got there was already a violent man on PCP attacking one of our cops. So again, you might not have seen all of that because we got one video from across the street. We saw the other videos. So I'm glad to debrief on that, but let's be really careful about making comments about our police officers and what they do. You have to understand that man was a danger to himself, to bystanders, and to the police. And they were very effective at getting him under control very quickly. And you'll see in the video, they turn him over really quickly. His head is down for 1 second so that they can get him handcuffed, which is a protocol in police stuff. You put his head down, they get him handcuffed, they turned him over, and then you can actually see them reassuring the man as they bring him into the van. And then they got a medical assistance. So please don't jump to judgment on this. This is not the way to do, you don't do a police review in public. Second, the last thing I would like to just say is I wanted to congratulate our retirees. I'm glad that we're finally recognizing them. We have decades of experience that have come in, and I appreciate the mayor doing these certificates because I think it's important, that we recognize these commitments.
Okay. Are we ready to start up with local laws, or? All right. So item 2 is a resolution appointing Joseph Oakes to the position of water and sewer maintenance mechanic. Do you want to cover several of these together, Chris? Do you want to do them one at a time?
We can do them quickly, one at a time.
Okay.
So Joe Oakes has been with the Water and Sewer Department since September 2019. He's currently a water and sewer maintenance mechanic helper. We had done a number of promotions in last year's budget, and so this is one of the ones that we're processing. That's why you're going to have a bunch of these. I think we have 2 or 3 more coming. So again, this is Water Department, and our department head is here in the back, Ed Balicki. who I hear gives a mean tour.
Yeah, apparently. All right, so I'm looking for a motion and a second on appointing Joseph Oakes to water and sewer maintenance mechanic.
A motion?
Second.
All right, so I think I heard Molly and Dan. Any discussion? And are these roll calls or voice? They're voice votes, right?
Everything's a voice vote
now.
from here on
Okay.
in.
So, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next one is appointing Manuel Galarza to the position of maintenance helper.
Yes, so known as Angel Galarza, he's currently a groundskeeper cleaner, and he's been with us since 2018. He's the one that cleans up every night here. He takes care of setting us up. He's just been a great, dedicated employee through COVID, and we're moving him up from groundskeeper cleaner to maintenance helper. And again, it was in the budget for last year.
So I'm looking for a motion and a second.
Motion?
Second.
I think I heard George and Paloma, is that right? Or no, it's George and Ren, right?
Ren.
Yep. Okay. Any discussion?
Just that I've been able to meet Angel a couple of times in various meetings here, and he's been lovely to work with.
Yeah,
so
he's a good
I'm
guy.
glad that he's getting a promotion.
Yeah, he is the most upbeat individual that you can run into.
And
So,
just dependable.
okay. So this is appointing Manuel Galarza to the position of maintenance helper. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. So the next one is appointing Peter Delfico to the position of senior automotive mechanic.
So Peter Delfico currently is in our highway department as an automotive mechanic. This promotion's long overdue. We were having issues with civil service titles, and we actually got the ability to use the senior automotive mechanic title, which wasn't allowed for cities at one point. So again, this is in the budget. Pete's a great diesel mechanic, and we're really lucky to have him.
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion and a second appointing Pete Delfico to senior automotive mechanic.
Motion.
That's George.
Second.
And Dan. Any discussion? All right, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. So the next one is amending the 2022 operating budget.
We got a firefighter that I'd like to hire.
All right.
Daniel Wysocki.
Oh, did I miss Dan? Okay. All right, so back up. So there's a motion appointing Dan Wysocki to the position of firefighter.
Yes.
Either that or we're short one, right?
Well, do you want to be short one?
No.
Okay.
So cost more. Can I get a motion and a second on that first?
Motion.
Second.
And so that was, I think, Molly and Dan. And Chris, will you want to explain my omission?
So this is a vacancy we have in our fire department. When Mike Merritt, who was honored this evening, retired, we backfilled his position with another a firefighter who became a lieutenant, and now we're filling the firefighter position. And Daniel got 100 on his civil service exam. He comes with extensive EMS experience. He was really highly rated in his interview with the chief and the other lieutenants, and we're really pleased to bring him on.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Now let's try amending the 2022 operating budget. You want to tell us what that's about, Chris, for the public?
Yeah. So this is amending the 2022 operating budget by taking $37,353 from contingency, putting it into the engineering line. We didn't include this in the 2022 budget because we weren't sure what the amount was going to be. You'll see later on in the agenda there's an agreement for Cedar Wood for a lake management plan for our 3 reservoirs. And so this money covers that contract.
Okay, can I get a motion and a second to amend the operating budget by the $37,000?
Motion.
Second.
So that was, I think, Ren and Justice.
I have a quick clarifying question. Is it going to be the usual cadence that when we'll have these things come up that we'll have to move money potentially in the budget, we would do that first before we then vote on the item?
That's the way I try to do it. I mean, if you see, we've been trying to arrange the agendas by what it is. So like we try to do appointments, budget items, contracts than local laws. And so in terms of what came first, I wouldn't want to authorize the contract before we had the budget amendment. But we do hope to minimize most of those. Most of the contracts you're going to vote on have been funded through the budget.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. And this one was in the budget. We're just moving it from contingency because we didn't want to disclose what we thought the number was going to be
Right.
until we get the bids.
You don't want to telegraph that when they're.
Okay. So all in favor of this budget amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Next one is, the next ones are agreements. So these are all authorizing the city administrator to execute agreements. The first one is for Choice Words LLC for the provision of municipal grant research and writing services. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion.
Second.
And that, I think, was Molly and George. And Chris?
We've had a professional grant writer for a few years now that helps our fire department with fire grants, did our DRI grant submission. We've done some others for water and sewer. We're renewing that and using it less than we did last year. It had been budgeted in 2020 for $40,000 because they were doing other writing such as press releases, and now we're focusing them solely on grants. So this is for up to $20,000 in 2022, and it's billed on an hourly rate of $90 an hour. So we can use them as much as we need them, and if I need them more, I'll come back and ask you for more.
Procedural question. If anyone on the council or anyone from the public has an idea of a grant they think that the city should apply for, should they just let you know, let
Yes.
us know?
Yeah, they can.
And we're happy to receive any ideas from the public.
Sure.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, so this is allowing the administrator to execute the agreement for municipal grant research and writing. All in favor?
Aye.
And anyone opposed? Okay. The next one is also authorizing the administrator. This one is an agreement with Health America, Mental Health America of Dutchess County for the provision of a mental health worker. Chris?
So we started a relationship last April with Mental Health America of Dutchess County for an intensive behavioral caseworker, LaShavia Sticker, who's worked out very well with the police department. We are looking to renew that when it expires on March 1st, and the new one-year cost would be $72,500.
All right, so can I get a motion and a second for that?
Motion.
That was
Second.
Paloma and Justice. Okay. And so, any discussion? Again, this is just re-upping last year's agreement, right?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right.
Sorry, I have one clarification. I know we just
Yeah,
passed it, and I'm
that's
fine
all
with
right.
that, but was it in last year's agreement? Because I think this one includes the right for Chris to negotiate up to 10% for the next 4 years. Is that right?
Yes, so rather than coming back every year, if their proposed increase is less than 10%, I can negotiate an amendment or an extension of the contract.
Okay, and so last year was just 1 year, and
Yeah.
this year has the 4-year extension?
Correct.
Okay, great. Just to clarify for the public, in case they're like, why doesn't that not come up again? They stopped
Yeah,
doing that, so.
we wanted to see how it went last year, and it
Right.
went really well. And I would say Lashavius was here on site when that fellow was locked up and was here to work him down a little bit, you know?
That's great.
So,
Thanks for the question. I think that's useful. I'm sorry, Paloma?
And this is a question, I'm happy with the vote, but we had in discussion last week talked about whether Mental Health America offered any additional services like de-escalation training or any other support, and I don't know if you've gotten around to asking.
Well, we've set up a time, and Ben would know the agenda. I'm having them come in to give you a report, and I've asked them to talk about what they could do in that regard as well.
Perfect, thanks.
Okay. All right, so the next one is Cedarwood Engineering. This is the lake management plan for the reservoirs. So this is authorizing the city administrator to execute agreement with them. They were the low bid. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion?
Second. So that was Molly and George, and I may have misspoken.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct, yeah.
Thank you.
So this is a professional service to
Right.
help develop a Lake management plan for the 3 surface water reservoirs that we have, Melzinga, Cargill, and Mount Beacon. You may remember we had a problem with algae bloom last year in Melzinga. The idea of this is to take a holistic ecological look at each of those bodies of water and try to figure out what are indicators that would show us that an algal bloom is imminent, and how might we avoid that through certain natural and even aeration processes. So this is covered by the budget amendment that you just did, and it was the subject of just quotes. Yep. We got two quotes for this. I don't know that if it may have been the lowest, but we really went with best value, trying to find something that fit our scope of work.
Right, which you can do if you are doing professional service agreements.
Right.
Yep.
And you'll see the next one that we have is a bid, which is more very formal.
Okay. Any discussion on this?
I just want to share for the public the question that Molly asked last week, which was what happened with that algae bloom last time, and reiterate that it was deemed not toxic, and it sounds like it was handled really well by our water department. So never fear. This is proactive, it sounds.
Yeah, and Melzinga, as I think our superintendent of water and sewers described, was shut offline by the time the algae bloom was happening. It wasn't toxic. We believe it would have been treatable through the plant, but it's also not an ideal condition for your raw water. So we're trying to figure out how to keep these surface water bodies healthy in an age of climate change where we're getting weird weather. Yeah. So.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, so on Cedarwood Engineering, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. So the next one is a bid. No, an RFP, right?
No, you got it. It was a bid.
It was a bid, okay.
There will be a test later.
All right. This one's authorizing the city administrator to correct the mayor repeatedly and also to execute an agreement with TAM Enterprises for primary settling tanks equipment replacement over at the sewage treatment plant. Pardon?
Nothing.
All right. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion.
Second.
All right, so that I think was Justice and Ren, and then Chris is going to correct me and then tell us what it's about.
You nailed this one, Mary.
Okay,
you got this. So at our wastewater treatment plant on Dennings Avenue, we've done a lot of work over the years. One of the major capital projects left to do is this primary settling tank, which is where the raw water begins to be separated out, have the sediment separated out from the water. It hasn't, we have the original facilities from the 60s, so we put it out to bid to do a whole refurbishment of that. We received 4 bids on January 18th, and TAM Enterprises, Inc. from Goshen was the lowest responsible bidder. Our city engineer reviewed their bid, found everything to be in order, and we'd like to run with this and start ordering the parts that need to go into that facility. So the total amount is $1,898,540. And we put this in our capital program from 2021. And it's actually less than the engineer's estimate, which is a rarity these days with some of the supply chain and labor issues we're seeing.
Okay. Questions? Did we get a motion and a second on this one?
We did.
We did, that's right.
And you'll even get a tour at some point. We'll show you this thing.
And the city has worked with TAM Enterprises before, correct?
Yeah, TAM did our Headworks building, which is where the water comes into the plant, and they've done a lot of other work over the years. They really know that. I think they did our chlorination, dechlorination chamber recently.
I think you also mentioned that one of the reasons they may have been lower is because they're fairly local, and so the equipment doesn't have to be shipped as far.
Yeah. They're based in Goshen, and the other ones that there were bids on were much further away, it seemed. Yeah.
And the familiarity with the plant, they know the staff, they know how it operates, so they probably could trim their mobilization costs a lot.
So all in all aspects, this was the best possible bid. That seems like.
It's a good bid.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the other ones were over 2 million.
To George's point, it's good to shop local. I know we had to. This was contractual, but still.
All right, shop local for sediment.
You could find anything on Main Street, right?
That's the spirit.
Can't buy underwear.
That's true, huh?
Okay.
Not anymore.
All right, I'll take that as a no further comments on this one.
Wow.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Got two left. One is setting a public hearing for proposed local law, amending one of our chapters and sections of the code concerning the residency requirements for career firefighters and the fire chief. Let me just get a motion in a second first.
Motion. Second.
So I think it was Dan and Molly.
I think it was Molly and Molly, actually.
Okay, but we'll take it as Molly and Dan then. All right, and is it Nick, you're going to tell us what the summary of this is?
There he is.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry about that. So correct, this is, as you described, Mayor, a local law concerning residency requirements, amending the city code for career firefighters and the fire chief, and modifying the current limits for the career firefighters to within a 30-mile radius, and removing the present language that limits the fire chief, and recognizing that that mileage limit radius will be removed, and it's in the discretion of the mayors who advises us to recommend a fire chief, and then the council will consider that when we're deliberating whether to consent to the mayor's appointment of the fire chief. Make it consistent, I would point out, with the hiring of police officers. And this will be set for a public hearing to be held in 2 weeks.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second and an explanation. We're just expanding the radius for where a career firefighter and a chief can live, leaving some discretion on the chief. Any comments?
I think I brought this up as a question. The section 2, 3110A, the fire chief shall be without a record of felony conviction. And I had asked if that was a point that is required, or if the city has discretion over that.
Well, I have followed up with my colleagues in the labor law section of our firm, but I've not yet heard back from them. I will follow up to make sure you have an answer before the hearing is held.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, so all in favor of setting the public hearing regarding distance for firefighter residences, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, last one is setting a public hearing for public law amending Chapter 173 concerning rental properties to prohibit eviction without good cause. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion.
Second.
Dan and Justice, I would.
I'll let Paloma have that one.
All right. Okay. All right, so Nick, do you want to kind of provide a summary real quick?
I can. I'll keep it brief because I think we have had a number of discussions on it, and if there's a need to elaborate, please let me know. This would repeal existing Chapter 173 and add a new Chapter 173 concerning rental properties to prohibit eviction without good cause. We have added Article 1 regarding definitions, a series of definitions that are used both within the requirements to have non-owner occupied registration requirements, and we've put forth a number of new requirements regarding registrations and expanded its obligations and added some language in there about public access to records, permits that are required, as well as prohibitions on collection of rent and evictions if there is, for example, not a certificate of occupancy and it's not otherwise in compliance with the building code. And then there is the new section, Article 3, which prohibits an eviction without good cause shown. And essentially that sets forth in Section 173-16 that a court, when it's considering a summary proceeding that's being commenced by a landlord to remove a tenant from possession or an individual from possession of the apartment, that the individual cannot be removed unless the landlord has established one of 9 grounds that establishes a good cause for removal or eviction.
Okay, any comments on this one?
I'll reiterate that I know that there are certain council members who are not decided on whether or not we want to take a vote on this law, but I still believe that we should move to public comment in order to have the appropriate discussion about the policy itself and the value of the policy.
Yep, and I know we had a discussion about whether we just, kind of have a general open comments or whether we, put up a local law. And it just seems like having a local law, regardless of whether you agree with it or not, kind of gets the comments out more specifically, right? So I think that's fine.
We got some good specific ones tonight, too.
Yeah. All right. Any other discussion on this? All right, so on setting a public hearing, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? Okay. I need a motion to approve the minutes of January 18th from someone who has read them.
Motion.
Second.
Oh, George and Molly, I'm just doing a test on reading. Any corrections, additions, whatever, right?
Not that I noticed.
Issue with semicolons?
Not enough or too many?
Just a unnecessary use of semicolon.
Got it. We'll work on that. All right. All in favor of adopting the
George,
minutes
we deeply apologize. And we'll try
of
to-
January 18th?
I was an English major in college, so.
So do you use the Oxford comma or not?
I don't want to get into that. It's too
Okay.
controversial.
I understand. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. So now we're at our second opportunity for public comments. The room is reasonably quiet. If you have spoken before, you cannot do a second public comment. So I think we're done for the evening, at least in formal comments, unless someone online wishes to speak who did not speak before.
You
All
have
right.
no speakers.
If you're on Zoom and you'd like to make a comment, please use the raise hand option at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're on a phone, you can push *9. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll have to join the Zoom by visiting beaconny.gov. And just to reiterate, if you've spoken before, you will not get an opportunity to make another comment in person or on Zoom.
You have no new speakers.
Okay. So I'm going to take that as
Oh, you do.
everyone-
You have one.
Okay. Let's do it.
Our speaker is Michael Mart.
Hi, this is Michal Mart. I just wanted to thank the mayor and George for acknowledging the loss of Flora and especially Lou Amoroso and making this about the community and the people that are here and that are speaking up. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? I think we're done. I'm going to look for a motion to go into executive session for contract negotiations and then to immediately come out and adjourn.
Need a motion for that?
Yeah.
Motion for that.
George?
Semicolon.
And I need a second.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you all very much. And again, we will conduct no other business other than adjourning after we come out of executive session, so thank you, everyone, and good night.
Okay.
Record.
I thought you were gonna